can you be the best journalist if you are that enraptured with capitalist bounty?
It's tough in this industry, right? I've experienced it at Kotaku. You can very easily get cut off from contact with these studios. Kotaku and Nintendo have not gotten any, there's been no relationship there for years. And
what do you what was the straw that broke?
I think this was before my time there. I think there was a piece that somebody wrote about how people were emulating Metroid Prime before it came out.
Oh, okay. And that turned people on to go do that, and they got upset.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's been belly up ever since. And then I think there was a report from back when Jason Schreier was still there, I think, about Bethesda, and Bethesda's for a long time.
Jason Schreier?
I think so.
That's what I call him. I don't like him at all. He doesn't like me.
You don't like Jason?
He to me. He's a dick, but I appreciate that one person's dick is another person's.
I mean, him and we haven't interacted that much. He's been supportive.
I'm sure he's great to so many people. He and I just are on the wrong foot. Totillo and I were on the wrong foot for a long time because his fucking rag accused me of being a fucking misogynist. And I said, no, sexist. I said something sexist, and I did. And I apologized. I told the reporter, she told me, no, I said, you're right. That was sexist. I'm sorry, but it was not misogynist. Totillo, can you please retract calling me a misogynist? Because no, I'm like, all right.
It's just really tough to toe that line, because I think more so than regular journalism, right? And you saw, I think, God, not long after the ceasefire, there was a journalist dragged out of a White House press conference who was asking
questions. I did not see that.
I think games journalism is a prime example of how difficult that line is, because I think there is value in people pointing to how sometimes some outlets, and Kotaku would very openly deride them, are just mouthpieces they're just PR times two. They're just, this game looked good because look good, and that's a lot of the mid-level game sites.
Right.
Some of the big ones are very pro company.
IGN, I assume, would probably. I like IGN in the same way I like People Magazine, right? I mean, it's got access, it's fun, it's but I don't go to it expecting anything other than previews, which is great. They do a great job of that. But yeah, that's not where I go.
Sometimes some of their stuff, social media stuff, I'll see, and that often has to do with sponsored content stuff, which always has to be delineated that it's sponsored content. But sometimes it can be a little, I think they had a few military sponsored things where we were but some of their reporting is incredible. The Rebecca Valentine reporting that she did for Game Science and Black Myth Wukong, which has gotten her so much. But what I mean is there are a lot of sites, and I wouldn't necessarily put them in there, that are just mouthpieces. And I think there are people in the games industry, or at least game fans, who see that and they're like, the access media, I don't trust any of this. And I understand them. I understand that frustration. There is a line that is so tough to toe where you do want to push, but also, Totillo, Schreier, those guys push, but they can push because you cannot blackball aggressively Totillo and Schreier. Because you can try, but you will
let me just tell you something. Here's a story for you. And it's so old that it's not going to matter. But this, in the last 5 years, let's just say I have a recording that someone sent me from a meeting where he had said something. They were saying, if he doesn't, basically, I don't know if they wanted him to retract something or not print something, then we're going to cut all access to him. I have and this is not something on the internet. This is somebody recorded it, sent it to me when I was streaming. And I said, that's not what I do. And it's not my place. And, I just, but at the end of the day, it all worked out. And I don't think they're an anomaly.
No. And I'm sure there are instances of that. I have been in the room with roundtables with Schreier and Totillo, and they're investigative journalists, and they have so much clout that they push harder than I think some. It can be really scary for someone who feels like they're young in this industry, who feels like they're still cutting their teeth as a journalist, who's scared to get uninvited from things. It can be scary to push. And it can also be, it can negatively affect you. I have not been in a situation since that Microsoft CEO where I've been able to even have that conversation. And to be honest, there are conversations that I have had that don't have to do with that. I haven't been in an interview since I learned that information. And maybe when I am, I will have that conversation. Will I get invited to another Microsoft thing?
Right.
Let's find out. Let's find out. And as someone who's currently freelance, who doesn't have a masthead, who's trying to make money on her own, there is a level of power dynamic here that can be really scary for people. And it is literally like looking at, okay, am I going to poke this bear and maybe never get an invite to something again? And there goes a whole section of what could help me get more freelance work stopped. And it,
do you think though, and I don't know, somebody, when I mentioned that you and I were going to chat, they're like, oh, well, Colin Moriarty and her don't get along. And I'm like, I love Colin to death. He's a great guy for me. I've always had a great relationship with him. I don't know your relationship with him, but my understanding is you guys are oil and water or whatever.
I think we've interacted once or twice. I was not a fan of the way that he treated the people at Fanbyte. He was pretty intense to them during a time period where they were struggling to keep their site up, from what I understand.
I don't know any. This is the Chinese company.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, he like me. I mean, I have issues with a lot, but the bigger, we can talk about China and their involvement in video games and all that and why he might feel that way. But I bring it up though, more from a standpoint of that he has always said he gets no access. Nobody will give him any access to anything. But I think you're not dissimilar in a lot of ways, and that the people who trust you, they're not there because you got to play 6 hours of Assassin's Creed. Right? They're there because you want to rip the Band-Aid or you want to rip the covers off, both in terms of the political stuff, but also in terms of just the analysis of the product. Right? I mean, do you think that's sort of changing that desperation for access on the part of games journalism? It's like, it's not as important as it was because it's more now than just about previews, at least when you're an individual versus a big company.
I don't know. It's such a weird situation to be in because, like, you know, I was invited to see South of Midnight at Compulsion Games because the studio was a fan of my reporting that I was doing about this stuff in the space. And they knew that I very clearly understood the harassment that their community manager was facing and all of that stuff, you know, and that got me invited there. My work got me invited there. And I was able to have an exclusive interview with them because of that. And that is like, that's rare though, because if you look at Sony Santa Monica, like sticking up for someone like Alana, or you look at like Square Enix having to do like an anti-harassment policy because people were harassing their employees, that doesn't happen that often. So I do think the games industry is not so much like, I'm sure some journalists are concerned with access. I'm uniquely in a weird situation just because I don't have, you know, you're emailing my Gmail, you know, I don't have it at soandso.com right now.
Right.
I'm working off of freelance and the money I make, you know, streaming, which isn't a ton. And, you know, I'm in a unique position just in terms of like, do people still know that I'm capable of doing this work? Has my name been smeared so much that I can't?
And you would rather I have to ask because I'm always fascinated when I see the success stories of, you know, whether it is a Colin or whether it is a Giant Bomb, you would rather continue that versus going, I'm setting up my own shingle. You already have a Patreon, right? So why not just go all in on your notoriety and or fame, depending on who you're talking about, and just sort of make that space?
It's something I've considered, and it's kind of the reason why I'm, you know, Twitch streaming and doing the Patreon. But I actually don't have, like, I'm a video game journalist, but I'm not just a video game journalist. I'm fascinated with internet culture. I've written pieces for like women's magazines. I love sports, and I'm a writer. So like for me, I don't believe that I'm fully pigeonholed. However, I'm not well known outside of the video game industry. So when you look at someone like Totillo and GameFile, or you look at even someone like Taylor Lorenz, who left WAPO and started doing her own thing, their reach is so much bigger than mine. And they're still like, it's okay. Or like Aftermath, which is all ex-Kotaku folks, you know, there's not a lot of, I think, ground for multiple separate individual, reader paid and supported journalists in
like, if it's reader
like I do think that it will just people aren't gonna, I mean, no one wants to pay for 8 different subscription services to watch fucking, you know, Vanderpump Rules, and nobody's going to want to do have 5 different subscriptions to 5 different, so we're in a tough spot. I have, you know, obviously the streaming and the Patreon, it's not going to replace a salary. And also I function a lot better, me individually, having severe ADHD and about to no longer be medicated because I won't have insurance in a week.
Oh my God, dude, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's fun. I work better in structure, and I also enjoy mentoring and leading people because I was a senior editor at Kotaku, so I helped design stories.
So you like being in the corporate world of the
I don't know
office?
if it's corporate. I would love to have like another. Yeah, I like to have a structure where I work with people as well. I work. Believe it or not, I work well with others.
I do.
Enjoy.
You are not what I thought you were.
Thank you.
Which is kind of a compliment, but kind of unsettling, given that you have a reputation that is not what
listen.
You know.
The internet has, especially a place like Twitter, there's no nuance.
It's 4chan, right? It's become 4chan.
It's 4chan. And you take one tweet of mine where I'm clearly being silly, or I'm clearly like, I've had an entire day. I think also it's really hard. I'm not media trained. I'm from Long Island and I got a big mouth.
Me too.
And it is really hard to kind of read harassment all day, and once in a while it would happen, especially early on. I would read the worst. When this first started, I was getting pictures of bullets and nooses sent to me in my email. I was getting people paying for domain names in my name and in my sister's name, which doxed my parents. And meanwhile, my father was like, tell him fucking come to the house. I'm like, no. But like, I would spend all day getting abuse. And then I would be like, you, to like one person. And then it's like, remember when you told that person to go themselves? You're mean.
Right.
You're mean, bear poking, aggressive. And it's like, I'm not even posting the majority of that I'm getting because it's horrific and I'm tired and I don't want to give it any more credence than it's already gotten. And I don't want them to get that like serotonin surge from seeing me recognizing who they are and recognizing their message. Right. But I'm getting it all day. And like one time I turned around and I'm like, shut up. And it's like, well, you're a piece of shit. And it's like, okay, I can't win here because they don't want you to fight back. They want you to lay down and take it. And especially if you're a woman. So
and then it goes right back to the people at the top making the money off. They're just like, great, keep hating each other. I love it. The money just fucking rolls in. Let's change the subject to something lighter.
Yay.
The Jews.